Hey, what's going on, guys? Kalamazi here, and earlier today, two pretty important things happened / were discovered. Number one, Warlock tier is finally available for testing on PTR. So tonight we're looking at that. Off the bat, Destro's bugged, Demo is hopefully bugged, and Affliction is a little... Affliction is pretty good. A little interesting, but we'll see where that goes. And number two, the Onyx Amulet, the primordial gems, all that stuff that we talked about in yesterday's video, there's an interesting combination of gems found today in Sims. Well, not really in Sims, in game, that do a lot of damage. And Sims have been updated for those. So that ring, like I said yesterday, that could be good, actually is looking pretty good for Warlock. I'd assume the majority of classes. So tonight, talking about both of those. Two things before we get far in the video. Well, as always, WeakAuras, add-ons, profiles, links down below to Twitch and Discord, all for free for you guys. And as usual, want to give a huge shout out to my patrons before we get into the actual meat of the video here. Thank you for all support on Patreon, guys, a million times. Links appear as well as down below if you're interested in supporting on Patreon. And the big thing I want to give a heads up on, the 10.1 PTR Warlock spreadsheet will indeed be going live on Patreon in about a week and a half or so roughly. The tier 3 Failguard rank or higher gets early access to that. And yeah, so with that being said, let's get right into it. Alright, as we're getting into the primordial gems here, earlier this was found about like 3 or 4 in the afternoon my time. The interaction off the bat for the effect of Prophetic Twilight Stone. The Desirous Bloodstone actually counts as a healing stone. So Desirous Bloodstone says dealing damage, the chance to drain life, dealing shadow damage, and healing you for that amount. The healing amount can indeed proc the Prophetic Twilight Stone. The stone actually counts as a healing stone, which means that when combined with any damaging primordial stone in the third slot, all procs from the Desirous Bloodstone will also trigger the damaging stone's effect, and all procs from the damaging stone will trigger the Desirous Bloodstone's effect. So essentially, this combination is actually very potent in single target from what I've seen for the majority of classes and specs. Now, for Warlock, I ran Sims last night, as you saw. Every other gem combination wasn't that impactful, and from what I understand, I believe these gems were simmed as well, but the actual interaction between Twilight Stone and Bloodstone wasn't implemented because we didn't know it worked that way, from what I understand. However, I have run updated sims on all of these. The DPS gems being Humming Arcane Stone, Freezing Ice Stone, Echoing Thunderstone. From what I've seen, Humming Arcane Stone is indeed the best DPS gem in single target. I would run sims if you have these. I haven't run them for all of these combinations, I will say, but you want Twilight Stone, Bloodstone, and typically one of these three in like raiding, and then you have the Storm Infused Stone for cleave and heavy AoE. I currently have Humming Arcane Stone in my single target sims here. And here are the results. So this is my character as Demonology. Roughly looking at the ring sim here, it is sitting at about an 1100, basically 1200 DPS upgrade. And we're wearing this over a 431 Seal of Filial Duty with a socket. This is actually huge. This is the highest ring you can get in the game currently. We're wearing Aeronog Ring, Fire Ring, and Onyx Amulet being a 1200 DPS gain over the Seal of Filial Duty. Now, all of these gems are indeed at 424. At 411, it was a bit of a downgrade by about 300-ish DPS. But once again, at 411, it was a downgrade, a slight one, over a 431 socketed ring and a 421 Aeronog ring. So this combination looks to be very, very potent and just very strong. Now, as far as the other specs are concerned, Demo looking at about 1.2k DPS. Destruction, looking at about 300 DPS. Not as impactful here, still worthwhile. We are indeed playing it, once again, over the 431 Haste Mastery ring from Broodkeeper. And Affliction, looking to be about 1000 DPS roughly, playing it actually with the Seal of Filial Duty. This is being played over a 418 Crafted ring for Affliction, because Af really doesn't want the Aeronog ring. But either way, 1000 DPS gain in single target for Af, 1200 roughly in single target for Demo, and Destro sitting at about 300 DPS. Now, I have indeed simmed these in AoE, and I will say I'm not totally sure of all the AoE implications and what it means and things. I guess if it's like functioning properly in AoE. But so I took a sim here, Destro, 8 targets, 40 seconds. This is the highest simming combination of Onyx Lariat and any other ring, sitting at 509, 401. Now, my highest overall combination is Filial Duty and Ringbound Hourglass at 418, sitting at 535. So still a solid option here. And this is also playing the Storm Infused Stone, the AoE one, with both Prophetic Twilight Stone and Desirous Bloodstone. So basically the two good ones, and a DPS one being Storm Infused for AoE. So about a 26,000 DPS downgrade, but still not terrible, depending what gem or what rings you have, right? When it comes to Affliction, I ran the same sim, looking at roughly a 25,000 DPS downgrade here as well. Not terrible, not the best, not the worst, but I mean, it's still a decent option. Once again, playing the Stormstone at 424. And then I ended up simming Demonology here, and it looking to be about roughly a 20k DPS downgrade as well. It sort of makes sense. Heavy sustained AoE, secondary stats more valuable. While the Storm proc probably is decent, I've heard it's doing pretty well in dungeons. I've heard people getting like 5, 6, 7 million damage overall from the effect in the ring itself. Secondary stats do indeed mean a lot, and this ring is indeed lacking them. So I did indeed put an enchant on it here as well. I believe I forgot the enchant in the AF sim. I think I did, but really isn't that big of a deal either way. So TLDR, if you're looking for these stones or looking to do some damage with this new ring, Prophetic Twilight Stone, Desirous Bloodstone, they're actually both very easy to roll. They are both part of the, one's Necromantic and one's Shadow Magic, but they're both part of the only 2 stone schools. So it's 1 in 2. Basically a 1 in 2 chance of getting the Bloodstone and 1 in 2 chance of getting the Twilight Stone. Now, here's the thing. The 3rd gem is indeed a 1 in 4 roll, or 1 in 5, depending on what you're going for. Here's the thing. This combination was found today, and while it very, very well could be intended to function this way, and all that, unless you're going into high-end content and progging this very moment in time, I would likely wait a day or two, probably until the weekend, Friday night, and see if Blizzard changes the interactions between these rings. Because while it does, interactions have functioned this way in the past, it seems a bit peculiar that it's working this way. And if you want, what I'm getting at is, if you want to upgrade these, it takes 60 of this Dormant Primordial Fragment. Not too hard to farm up, but I mean, it probably save you an hour or 2 of farming. If you don't really care, upgrade them now, have a good time with it. At 424, this ring with these gems at this point in time does indeed appear to be an increase for every single Warlock spec. Alrighty, so getting into actual Warlock tier that hit PTR today, Destro. Number 1, a big question, how is Destro performing, all that kind of stuff. I will say Destro tier is very interesting, mainly being due to the fact that you just can't cast Channel Demon Fire. It's bugged. You just can't cast Channel Demon Fire at all. So there's a way to cast Channel Demon Fire, but you can only cast 1 if you're fast, right? You can't cast it currently. It's bugged. It's unfortunate. It is what it is. But we've still been able to see a decent bit of what CDF does with the bonus. So now, as far as like normal stacks are concerned with the tier bonus, when you're playing Destro, you have Incinerate and Immolate, giving you a 1 in 5 chance to generate a Demon Fire Bolt stack or whatever. So we'll generate a stack here. I'll put up Immolate. It looks like a little purple and red eyeball, I think, up here somewhere. I'm trying to find the buff. Right there, it is, right there. Umbra Fire Embers. It's a little like purple, like fragment that fires out of you. The damage, I will say, is very, very subpar currently. It's very, very low. It's like, I think it's like 11,000 damage in single target. It's very undertuned. Now, if you're casting just Incinerates and Immolates, it is very hard to stack its effect, which is what we assumed. You would really only be getting value by playing CDF. I will say right now, it does indeed appear to be that CDF is a forced required talent to make this 2-piece, 4-piece work in its current form. You can see it's barely stacking here, 4 stacks, 5 stacks, and all that. Very slow to stack with Immolate taking and casting Incinerates. However, if we leave combat here, now keep in mind, this caps out at 15 stacks. And when it hits 15 stacks, your next Demon Fire Bolt deals damage and launches at your target and does AoE damage, right? Now, there's a way to get Channel Demon Fire to work. I'll try and do it here. Number 1, the big thing, watch my stacks. And number 2, the visual on CDF with this thing when it procs and stuff is really, really cool. I will give them that much. It is very, very cool seeing the purple with green being mixed in Fel Firebolt wise. So you can cast a Soulfire quickly, and then right after it, smash CDF. The important thing the first time here, though, watch my stacks. I'm at 6, right? Let me just clear them out. Why not? No stacks. Soulfire, CDF, watch the stacks. Watch the stacks. So, a casual 24 stacks from 1 Channel Demon Fire. I don't know if you saw it visually there either, but the actual shadow bolts with Bellfire bolts are really cool visually. So the damage breakdown here. So this is how this bonus works. This is the 15 stack explosion. It did 12k in single target. It is incredibly undertuned. It does no damage at all. It needs to be buffed substantially. These right here, it's why it has a different icon. These are the Felfire bolts. Now, the way this works, from what I've seen, this is why the tooltip was very cryptic when we read it initially, and we weren't sure how it worked. Channel Demon Fire bolts immolate and incinerate have a 20% chance to fire an additional Demon Fire bolt. Now, additional is important there. Every single Channel Demon Fire bolt you cast is a guaranteed stack. Every single one that you fire off casting Channel Demon Fire, it is a guaranteed stack. The bolts themselves then have a 1 in 5 chance to cast an additional one. So with Raging Demon Fire, CDF launches 20 bolts. So CDF gives you a guaranteed 20 bolts. So basically a proc and 5 stacks of the tier bonus. And then all 20 bolts have a 1 in 5 chance of, again, proccing their own additional whatever bolt it's called, the Umber Fire bolt or whatever. So outside of CDF, Immolate and Incinerate really don't do much with this bonus. You're sort of forced into playing CDF. I mean, visually, it looks really cool. Watch this visual with CDF again. So we'll try and do this briefly. Watch the green and purple ember swirling, right? It's super, watch this. It's super cool looking. It's really, very cool. The damage is undertuned. So 2 things here. Number 1, I can't test single target, obviously, because it's bugged. But number 1, it feels like you are going to be forced into playing CDF most likely to get good value out of this 2-piece and 4-piece. Now, I am playing Fire and Brimstone here. It does indeed appear to work with Fire and Brimstone. Watch my stacks here. Like there's 4, 5, 6, 7. It's sort of slow to update, but it does indeed appear to work with Fire and Brimstone. I get 1 stack per Mass Incinerate cast every time, not more than 1. It's odd. You get more value with Fire and Brimstone. I assume with more Immolates rolling, it's the same thing. But, so you're forced into CDF, number 1, if you're playing this bonus. And for what it's worth, sort of leading into number 2 here, I think it's actually probably pretty good in single target if you're casting CDF once every, you know, what's the cooldown? 15 seconds, something like that, right? 18? It probably isn't that bad when they get the numbers right. Probably need to buff CDF, need to buff the actual 2-piece, 4-piece damage a decent bit. I just think that when it comes to this bonus, feedback-wise, it's good when you're in spots like this. When you have, you know, when you're in single target, right? You can go, you know, Soulfire, whatever you're doing, or just, you know, cast Channel Demon Fire in single target. If it's tuned properly, sure, it'll be fine in single target damage. If you factor in a second target on top of this, like Kurog, let's say this adds on top of it, in like stacked, like 2 target, probably okay as well. But my question is when you're in spots like this, when you have a mob here and a mob here, and I'm, you know, I'm in a Havoc window, even outside a Havoc window, I'm not really getting any CDF value here. Like, even out, like, you know, like, even when Havoc closes, it just feels awkward playing CDF in the first place in a setting where you have 2 spread targets and you're cleaving a bunch. Like the Elemental boss in Aberrus, right? It just seems very awkward having that, yes, a part of your rotation when instead you can have points in Rolling Havoc or have points in Scalding Flames and Grimoire Sacrifice. And to a similar extent, it feels awkward. I'm going to assume it's going to feel awkward when you're in heavy AoE, 6, 7, 8 targets, right? And you have the option of spamming multiple Rain of Fires. You have shards flowing in. You're overcapping on shards a bunch by taking time to stop not casting Rain of Fires and casting CDF. You're not going to stop casting Rain of Fires when you have shards rolling in over and over and over. Oh yeah, milling Rain of Fires. Let me just stop and cast CDF for 2 seconds. It's sort of awkward in those scenarios, right? Now, they need to buff CDF number 1. Could they make it work? I'm sure some way they can make it work. Yeah, it sort of feels like it should just be possibly. It feels like, to me personally, the work that they would have to put into it to make it viable. I hate using that word, but really make it, you know, make it worthwhile in single target, stack cleave, spread 2 target cleave, and like huge AoE would probably just be better vested putting it in like maybe a bit of a redesign. It's possible, and for what it's worth, I think it's very cool. It's actually really cool visually. I like the idea behind it a little bit, but I feel like it's not really universally applicable. And when it comes to a tier set, that's what you want. Demo, you're always playing Grimoire. AF, you're always playing Valentine or Phantom Singularity. But Destro, we haven't played CDF in a very long time. And even if you make it good, even if you make it good in single target and good in like stack 2-target cleave, you're still probably not playing it in spread cleave or mass AoE. Now, when it comes to afflictions bonuses, keep in mind the bonus gives you a cooldown reduction to both Vial Taint and Phantom Singularity, while also increasing their damage by 60%. It makes Phantom Singularity about a 33-second cooldown, which is shown right here, and Vial Taint about a 25-second cooldown. Now, the other thing with the 4-piece is that they both apply a buff or a debuff on your target called Infirmity, which the tooltip here says enemies damaged by Phantom Singularity gain Infirmity for its duration. So I'd assume the duration of Phantom Singularity, which is extended by Dark Glare at times, right? And now it also says Vial Taint by 10 seconds. Vial Taint does not say duration. So Phantom Singularity works with Dark Glare extension. Just believe me, I'm not going to show it here, but it's fine. It works for the baseline duration, or if you pop Dark Glare, it works for, you know, the entire duration extended by Dark Glare. Vial Taint says 10 seconds. However, if I put up Vial Taint on this target, watch Infirmity. So here's Infirmity. If I Dark Glare, it extends here, but it should theoretically expire about, well, honestly, about like now, but it ticks for the entire duration of Vial Taint. So I'm not sure if it's a bug. I mean, it's a positive bug if that's the case. It might just be intended and the tooltip's a bit off. I'm not really sure. Let's see where that goes, but not the end of the world. Hey, we'll take it. Now, outside of that, I mean, there are a few different builds you can maybe play with this version of AF, because keep in mind, it is basically syncing Singularity to Soul Rot if you're playing double Soul Eater's Gluttony. So I started with a build that looked a bit like this. We weren't playing Visionary. We were just playing 2 points of Soul Eater's Gluttony. So it was like 1 Soul Rot, 2 Gluttony, 1 Dark Glare, 1 Haunt, 1 Crescendo, and full Dread Touch row here. We were playing Singularity. We were not playing Vial Taint. I don't think the cooldown reduction on Vial Taint's that big. It'll be nice in Mythic Plus in certain spots where you want the effect quickly, but for the most part, it's sort of whatever. The damage increase is nice, and the 4-piece for Vial Taint's nice when you're spamming Seed a bunch of plus, right? Because every target hit by a Vial Taint that has the effect on it will indeed take more damage due to Infirmity. Now, PS does cleave on targets as well, right, with its pulsing effect, but when it comes to like pure single target, with the cooldown being half a minute, I would assume that Singularity does indeed pull ahead of Vial Taint in Sims now. It'll be a sim thing in the long run. But I started playing this build here with the idea behind it being Soul Eater's Gluttony can sync every Soul Rot to every PS, and they're all reduced. I mean, this is half a minute long, so you have these spikier Rapture windows roughly once every half a minute. Now, from what it seemed like, the damage seemed okay. It seemed relatively similar to playing a Malevolent Visionary build with just, you know, 1 point in Soul Rot, nothing in Gluttony. And even when it came to playing Haunted Soul, it felt like that build was pretty similar as well. It'll end up being a sim thing in the long run, but it was pretty interesting nonetheless. I can open up here briefly with it and show you guys. Now, as far as damage testing is concerned for every spec, probably going to hold off on doing that video till later on this week or next week when they fix the bugs with Destro and things as well. But it felt pretty good. AF felt solid. So open up on Haunt, UA, Agony, Corruption, Siphon Life, Drain. We're going to PS. We're going to Soul Rot. We're going to Trinket or whatever. We're going to Dark Glare and start Rapturing, right? Now, watch Soul Rot and watch PS here, because Soul Eater's Gluttony is going to sync our Soul Rot to basically right around PS timing. It looks to be that we get PS like 3-ish seconds earlier than where we get Soul Rot. So Soul Rot we have to sit on our PS for a few seconds here. It might be the other way around, but it works for the most part. So we're looking at like 9 seconds here. We have PS coming up about now. I'm gonna Rapture once here. So basically they're synced up pretty well here. So we can go into our Soul Rot window, the Rapture window. You have these larger Rapture burst windows every half minute. Like my Raptures are hitting for 140k here. This is gonna fall, it doesn't matter, just an example. My Raptures are hitting for 140k if they crit there, right? The max is 140 exactly. I saw a non-crit for 75k, right? Like, you have these strong burst windows roughly every half minute, which is not too bad. It makes your Dark Glare roughly a 215 cooldown, like as far as like, you know, raw time between them due to the 33-second cooldown on Singularity not being actual 30, but it's still pretty solid. I've seen Singularity sitting around 6.2 to 7% of our damage depending when you cast it. It's not incredibly high, even with the 60% damage increase effect from the 2-piece, but it's something. And once again, when you have Singularity up, Infirmity, the buff, makes the target, every target it's hit by Singularity's pulsing effect, or every target that has a Vial Taint on it, the actual dot, take 10% increased damage. and they're both affected by Dark Lair extension. So AF seems pretty good overall. Not like incredibly flashy and really, really exciting to play with. It feels better though. It feels good. And in a world where you have 5 dots and a million buttons that bloat your rotation as AF, I'll take it. Alrighty, now when it comes to Demonology, Demonology's tier set was one that I was really excited about. I'm not building up some big letdown here. I'm just, backstory. I was really excited about it because it basically syncs your Grimoire Felguard to your Reign of Tyranny Tyrant. Now, it might make GWD a bit less relevant, but either way, you get this Reign of Tyranny sync with Grimoire Felguard, right? They did indeed nerf the Felguard damage from 40 to 20% for the 4-piece. Not a big deal. It is what it is. The big thing here, the 4-piece says, while Grimoire Felguard is active, your demons deal 20% additional damage. Now, the interesting thing here is that, so I'm going to Tyrant very briefly. When I pop my Grimoire Felguard, it puts a buff on you. I don't know who this person is, by the way. What is it? What is this? A Ruavard, right? A Ruavred? Watch this buff. So I haven't Tyranted yet, right? Felguard's active. Felguard's active. He's over here. He's chilling. He's still active. I'm going to Tyrant, but watch the buff. There's no buff extension. So he's still active. He's still going. He's still swinging. He's still there, but there's no buff. So they made the buff a baseline, basically the baseline duration of Grimoire Felguard. Now, I'm assuming this is a bug. I'm hoping this is a bug, because if this is a bug, if it's not a bug, this bonus is nowhere near as exciting. It's actually like probably really frustrating to play with, because it makes you want to cast your Grimoire Felguard as the last spell going into your Tyrant, because Tyrant damage amp and Grimoire Felguard damage amp, they will stack. But you also want the Grimoire Felguard pet damage amp to be active with Tyrant for its duration, because this effect does affect your Tyrant. It will indeed, we tested it, increase Tyrant damage. It increases Reign of Tyranny damage. So having to sequence that way, number one, means that, like, so if you're able to go Grimoire Felguard, Shadow Bolt, Vile Fiend, Shadow Bolt, Dogs, build to 5, and 3 or 4 hand cycles, that's fine, because it puts your Grimoire on CD about, 12-ish seconds before you cast your Tyrant. So with the reduction you're getting from your 2-piece casting bolts via Demonic Core, it basically means that if you cast Grimoire as your first spell, it'll come off cooldown, factoring in 2-piece reductions, about 12-ish seconds before your Tyrant comes off cooldown. So it enables you to have that, once again, that ramp building in the Tyrant, and when you finish your ramp, Tyrant's back off cooldown. You can go right into it at 130. If Grimoire is your last cast, it doesn't work. Tyrant's like a minute 40 cooldown because you're holding it for Grimoire, and plus you're not able to have that final 2 or 3 hand sequencing of maybe you get a Soul Conduit refund, get more imps in your Tyrant, all that kind of stuff. You have to play around, okay, Grimmore's going to be my last spell. So if it has to be. So if I have 4 shards and I have, 3 seconds left on my pets before they expire, I can't go hand Grimoire. It has to be Grimoire, Tyrant at 3 shards and not get 3 imps in your Tyrant. It just feels really convoluted and not very, synergistic. But I think it's a bug. It likely is. If it's a bug, the 4-piece says when Grimoire is active. So I think they probably just didn't, put 2 and 2 together as far as like coding goes. I'd hope so. If that works, it feels great. So I'll show you here. Like, we're playing Portal here. Don't worry about it. I'm not going to pop the Portal. Let's say you're playing a normal Immutable Hatred Tyrant build or whatever, right? So let's say we're opening up, going into this stuff, right? We cast Grimoire here. Cast Shadow Bolt. Vile Fiend. We Shadow Bolt. Cast Dogs here. Casting it because we got a refund, it's fine. You begin hand cycling, right? Hand, bolt, hand, bolt, hand. At this point, if you're going Grimoire, you have to Grimoire there instead of going, that final hand, get your final pet, right? But the big thing here I want to get at, watch the Grimoire Felguard cooldown reduction, where you can Grimoire as your first spell and not your last spell. It syncs up really well, and Demo just flows really well with it working for basically its entire duration. So we're looking at about a minute-ish on Tyrant here still, but watch when they both get under a minute. Watch how, like, they're pretty close in duration, but Grimoire slowly begins to sneak past where Tyrant's at. And then it gets to 5 seconds, 8 seconds, 10 seconds ahead of Tyrant, right? So Tyrant's 55 left, but watch, here comes Grimoire, right? 57, we have more Bolt procs coming in now. There's 1, 54, 52, Power Siphon, launch a Bolt here, and here it comes. It's sneaking up on Tyrant. It gets to a point where it's like 10-ish seconds ahead of Tyrant. They're basically synced now. Now it's ahead. And it gives you that option to be like, all right, cool. It gives you the ability, I should say, to once again start your ramp about 12-ish seconds before Tyrant's off cooldown, which feels great. This is what I was hoping for with the bonus, right? Right about here, right? I know in about 10 seconds, hey, I'm popping a Grimoire. We're gonna start casting our ramp, right? I was a little late on my Vile Fiend, but you get the picture, right? About Hold This Dogs. About now, I can go Grimoire, Shadow Bolt, Vile Fiend, maybe I get a proc, maybe not, dogs, some hands, and look at my Tyrant. This syncs up like perfectly. If this way feels great, right in the Tyrant, right in the strength, you're cranking, everything's synced up great, and guess what? The same thing's gonna happen again in a minute and a half. This feels great, but this way, look at the Tyrant cranking for 104k crits. But the only way this works is if they make it so that the 20% damage increase to your pets is actually based off of Grimoire Felguard being active, and not just a buff it gets for its duration, for its, you know, baseline duration. Because Tyrant will be active, every Tyrant is going to have a Grimoire in it, right? So that buff has to extend from Tyrant. It has to. If it doesn't, it's convoluted. It just doesn't feel very good rotationally. Now, we'll see where that goes long term. I hope it's a bug. I assume it's a bug, likely, but yeah, hopefully it's a bug. The other thing here with Demo is that, so we are playing Nether Portal. We did indeed play Immutable Hatred for a while. We are playing Nether Portal here. There is a reason as to why, and people might not like it, but I am here to just speak the truth. When it says all demons, it means all demons. So it buffs active demons, whatever. It buffs your Tyrant, but it also buffs the Pit Lord. So if you thought Demo with PI was good before, Demo with Power Infusion and Nether Portal is going to be beyond busted. Like, I wouldn't actually say beyond busted, because I mean, they're probably going to tune it and everything else. And it is like legitimately a pretty complicated spell at times with Portal and all that stuff. But Demo is pretty good with PI now. It isn't the best class, to be fair. I think DK is better and stuff, but it's going to be pretty strong, right? So let's say we're opening up here. I'm going to do an actual opener here. So we're going to hold our Grimoire as our final cast before Tyrant, and we're going to see what the Pit Lord can do. So we're going to Power Siphon when I get an Imp here. Give me an Imp, please. There's an Imp. Cool, here we go. So we're going to go into this full opener, right? So there's double Shadow Bolts. We're going to go Portal, Soulburn, Vile Fiend, no Grimoire because we're holding it, right? Dreadstalkers, Hand, Bolt, Hand, Bolt. I have the Grimoire here, and I can probably just go Hand quickly and then go Tyrant. But like, I can't go Hand there because I have to make sure I get my Felguard out, right? Watch the burst here and watch the damage. So we're sitting at 70k, 100k, 107, 115. Look at the Pit Lord. Look at the Pit Lord going. Look at him go. 700k. Even the Tyrant's coming up 140k burst. Like, they're competing for number 1 and number 2 here. The Imps will surpass them at some point. They're catching up too. But being able to load extra power into your Pit Lord through Bloodlust, through Power Infusion, and all that, it's going to be pretty wild with that bonus buffing it. But at the same time, it only happens once every 3 minutes with Nether Portal. You can't reduce the cooldown. PI has a 2-minute cooldown, so we'll see where all this goes. But it does buff the Pit Lord. It does buff Tyrant. But the big thing, either way, is that they need to make sure, once again, that the two-piece actually works with the correct active duration of Grimoire Felguard. If it's just a baseline, 17-second buff you get on yourself, this bonus is going to be annoying to play with, to say the least. You don't want Grimoire Felguard to be your last spell cast for a plethora of reasons. Thanks for watching, guys. That should just about wrap it up. Hopefully the video wasn't too long. It probably was at this point, but there's a lot to cover with Warlock tier. The Onyx Amulet Stones, like I said, links all down below if you want to check it out. TLDR, unless Blizzard breaks the combo or breaks up this interaction, it is worthwhile. You lose secondary stats, but it sort of is what it is. It looks to be good. In rating and AoE, we'll see where it goes, but there is indeed finally a good combo for the Onyx Amulet. Now, as far as Warlock tier is concerned, I don't mind the CDF stuff. I feel like in single target, if it's good there. But once again, for Destro, it's going to be hard to find value in like huge stack AoE with Inferno value, 1,000,000 Rain of Fires, and in Spread Cleave when there's a target here, I guess far apart, and you're not getting any stat cleave. So hopefully they can figure that out. AF feels good, feels smooth. AF is AF, feels solid, bit easier to manage, which is nice. And Demo is very close to being very, very good. Not like just good in damage wise, but it feeling very good. So hopefully that gets addressed in the next build like that. Feedback's important on that. So guys, if you see this video and all that, please give feedback on the forum stuff. And yeah, so let me know what you guys think about the current state of Warlock tier and things down below. If I missed anything, put it down below in the comment section as well. And I will, as always, be sure to get back to you. Any WeakAwares add-ons and profiles also down below in the description. Twitch and Discord links in there for you guys. They're all for free. And I want to give one huge final shout out to my patrons for in the video. Guys, for all support on Patreon, thank you a million times. I really appreciate it. If you're looking at supporting, it should be a link up here as well as down below. And like I mentioned at the start of the video, the 10.1 Warlock PTR spreadsheet will indeed be going live about a week and a half or so on Patreon. If you're interested in that, the tier 3 Felguard rank or higher gets early access to it. And yeah, so even like putting Warlock tier aside, I think we're actually in a pretty good spot in 10.1 so far. The Demonic Inspiration Raffle mini nerfs, they were known about for a while, didn't get fixed. It is what it is. They're fixed now. They're actually not fixed on PTR. There's raid testing on Friday. The bugs will still exist for Warlock at that point on PTR, but they're fixed on retail. And even with that being the case, Lock's still in a pretty good spot. I feel like it's finally in a spot it should have been heading into 10.0, but yeah, so we'll see where it goes. Aberrus is soon. 10.1 is ramping up, and yeah, I appreciate all the support, guys. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch y'all again soon on stream. Peace.